So hey everybody, it's Deborah Carter here, the founder of New Tech Kids. We are super excited to be kicking off an interview series where we interview technology experts and people working in the tech industry to give parents, teachers, caregivers, and even kids some insights into the cool careers that they can pursue, study for, work in, if they have a technology education background. Today, our first guinea pig is Seventer, who is the co-founder and managing director of Dutch Game Garden in Utrecht.
Yes.
It's super exciting because he heads up Dutch Game Garden, which is a game incubator and really a business center for small gaming companies and independent gaming professionals. So
Exactly.
Without further ado, let's take it away. JP, tell us about yourself and what Dutch Game Garden does.
All right, great. Yeah, thank you for having me today. So I've been in the industry for 22 years, started with kids games, Red Cat, Davilex games, worked on a horseback riding game at some point in Amsterdam for the Wii. And then I ended up working at Dutch Game Garden since 2008. And our job is to help young, talented startups to basically get going in the industry and help them to be successful. But we also help experienced companies with business leads and things like that. And I also have a background in game education, educating the next generation of students to how to build games and how to basically run a business. And I guess my own background is industrial design. So I studied as a product designer back in the 90s. This is before there were any game design programs in school. And I learned to do 3D drawing as part of my industrial design background. And that's how I got my first jobs in the game industry, building 3D worlds.
Very cool, very cool. So tell us about the gaming industry. I was just flabbergasted when I was doing a bit of research on the global revenue. I mean, this is bigger than movies, from music, etc.
Yeah.
So tell us about
That's right.
this.
Yeah, in the last 5 to 10 years, the game industry has become the biggest entertainment industry in the world. Used to be music and then film and then games, and that's turned. Gaming has basically taken over the total revenues of annual revenues are much bigger than any of the other medias. I think that's because games incorporates all the other medias. So film, music, interaction, all these things are incorporated into the game as a product. And so it kind of makes sense. And I think the world basically is basically everybody's playing games today. Yeah.
Awesome. So tell me, what are some of your favorite gaming companies and why are they your favorite gaming companies?
Well, I think in the Netherlands, I think Ronimo Games is one of my favorites. It's a bunch of students that started a games company in 2007. And I used to be their teacher in the last 2 years of their program. So I know them very well. And they are one of the reasons why I took this job, because my job became helping them and others to become successful. They build games on Steam. They have built Awesomeness, which is a game on Steam that's been quite successful for a long time. They made The Blob, which was a student game, which ended up becoming a game on the Wii. And they are working on a new game that they will announce soon. And there are 7 founders, really creative, really fun, very driven, and they have run a company today that is between 20 and 30 people, and they're extremely professional, and it's just always fun to see them and to see what they make. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you mean by the game on Steam? What's that?
Steam is basically the app store for the PC market. So anybody who wants to buy a game online for PC and also some for the Apple Mac can go to Steam, and that's where you basically buy your games. So it's a big app store for PC games.
Okay, cool. So why do people choose to work in the gaming industry? I mean, a lot of people game, but then there's a huge leap to go from just gaming to I want to work here. I want to get these skills. Why? Why do people do it?
Yeah, well, all the people that build games play games. Otherwise, that wouldn't make any sense. So most of them are triggered by the things that they play, and they would like to try that themselves. why games? It's just a lot of fun. You can build your own little worlds. You can build your own little rules. You can tell stories. You can hone skills in basically speed and agility, but also tactical decision making, puzzling. There's so many aspects of games that kind of mimic reality. In my opinion, games are small worlds that are sort of inspired by our real world. And depending on the game, there's a different aspect of the world that's represented in that game, whether that's racing or whether that's exploring or you know, whether it's puzzling or solving problems. There's just a lot of aspects of our world that game developers build into games, and games are kind of a safe way to experiment and make stuff that is fun. And you know, the creating of games is one of the reasons why game developers go into the game industry. It's just a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Interesting that you talk about worlds, creating worlds. I was talking with one of New Tech Kids' advisors in the fall, and he was saying the fact that I don't game is a huge disadvantage for me, because in this day and age, people who understand how to create virtual worlds, people who understand the dynamics of gamification have a huge advantage. So yeah, I hear what you're saying, very much so. So what kind of person thrives in the gaming industry? What kind of knowledge and skill sets do you need to actually go into gaming?
Yeah, I guess if you want to simplify it, you could break down game industry tasks into 4 major categories. The one that everybody always wants to be is the game designer, the one who thinks of the game and creates the rules and creates the reward system and basically designs the things the players are going to do. That can be somebody with a creative background in interaction design. Usually has a lot to do with interaction design, because you also have to do a lot of user interface things, and it's not just how you play the game, but also how to communicate that to the player. That's basically, but all disciplines that I'm about to explain have aspects of game design. Then of course there's the coders. So without coders, nothing gets started. So you need coders and game software to run the game on. So people with a programming background can build games. And that can be all sorts of background. People can teach themselves coding. If they want to get really good, they probably should have some kind of formal education to go really deep. I typically see 2 kinds of coders. Ones are the ones who are really good with prototyping and ideas and concepts, and usually they're designers / programmers. And then there is the deep programmers, the ones who really go very deep and know everything about hardware, software. And in order to do that well, it's smart to have some kind of computer science degree. Then the third category is the artists, the designers, the people who draw levels, who draw the characters, who draw and create the cars or the whatever you're making for your game world. They're the ones who basically take care of the visual part. And that also touches on game design, but it has a lot to do with experience, with perception. And in that art group, I call that the arts, there's also the storytellers and the music makers. So people who make music or people who create sounds for games, they're all in that thing I call the arts, and they are taking care of those disciplines. And then there's one more discipline that's really important that's often ignored. That is the people who do the management and also the business. So when you have a large team of people building a game, let's say you have 50 people building a game, then you need people who are really good in management to make sure all that is organized. But you also need people who, and they're often the similar people, the ones who sell the game, who go outside and bring it out. And those are the people who basically have some business experience and background, or at least have an entrepreneurial spirit. And if it's in big companies, they also need to have some hard management skills. So yeah, there's all these different types of people. So that's one of the reasons I like the game industry. You don't have just one type of person. You have a whole set of people with different skills. And in my philosophy, almost everybody in the world could join a game team somewhere.
Nice. So what do you need to study game design? Because it's my understanding that there are quite a lot of schools here in the Netherlands that actually have game design programs.
Yeah, in the last 10 years, there have been tons of schools started. Some of them have stopped again as well. There was a bit of a hype in terms of having a game school. I think the ones that I know well and that I'm connected to are the HQU School of the Arts in Utrecht, where we basically started partially from that scene. That's an art degree in design or in game art and even game programming, and I would say mostly gameplay programming. Then there's the University of Utrecht, which also has a computer science degree, sort of connected to game themes and game design. Then there's the BUAS, the Breda University of Applied Sciences. They have a really good program for basically AAA game development. I really like what they're doing over there. Then there's the Grafisch Lycea, right? The graphical, basically the MBO sort of level. So you've got the Grafisch Lyceum Utrecht or Media College in Amsterdam. They're great places to start, or St. Lucas, Boxtel. Those are great schools to get started earlier. And yeah, other schools that are doing it is the HVA Amsterdam or Hanse Hogeschool Groningen, Saxion, Enschede, Fontis. Yeah, there's just a lot of schools doing stuff with game design, but the first ones I mentioned are definitely the ones I would look at first. Yeah.
Perfect. Do you have any favorites in terms of schools outside of the Netherlands that do game design?
Ooh, I know there's a really good one in Belgium, in Kortrijk, Houwest, comparable to the one in Breda.
Mm-hmm.
I really like what they're doing over there. I know there's in the US, maybe DigiPen is really famous. I know USC in LA is well known. USC California in, I think, Santa Cruz or somewhere is also really good. The only thing with the US is you have to be willing to pay US prices to go to school. That's the major disadvantage. I would say in terms of value for money, I think the European schools are actually really good.
Okay, great, great. I forgot to ask you. So the gaming industry is really known for a lot of guys, where guys hang out.
Yeah.
And is that really the case? What's the role of women in the gaming industry? Is the gaming industry friendly to women? Are there women that are thriving in the gaming industry?
Well, there are definitely women that are thriving really well. And yes, I wouldn't say the gaming industry has always been friendly to women, no, but that is changing very fast. I know a lot of teams that do really well in that way. I have some teams in our program that have a female founder, for example, Wisfire. Wisfire is a really cool company that builds a game called Herald. Wisfire is WISP Fire, and I would check out their site. Ida de Ridder is one of the three founders, and she's an exceptional artist, makes amazing visual stuff. She's a perfect example of someone who's doing well. People that inspire me are people like Kate Edwards, who is a geography expert. She helps companies make games that are not offensive in any culture. If you're going to sell your game globally, then some of the content that is fine in the Netherlands or fine in the US may not be fine in China or in the Middle East for reasons of religious sensitivity or cultural sensitivity. And she's an expert on that. And she's been the head of the Global Games member organization, the IGDA, for 5 years. So she's a really acknowledged person with an extremely depth of knowledge on games and culture. And so she's a great example. There's a really wonderful, in Groningen, there's Story World, which is a museum about games, and there's a great exposition with the work of let's see, Lois van Barle. So if you check out Story World Groningen, and once we are allowed to go back outside again, I would say check it out, because it's an amazing. She's also an artist. She makes incredible stuff, really beautiful and professional. She's done character design for guerrilla games, for Zero Dawn, and so it's another great example.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, so and in terms of coding, I know there's some really good coders. I couldn't think of one so quickly for this call, but there are some great examples. Yes, it is a bit harder to get started, but right now the roads are open. I see in the schools annually a higher percentage of women joining. I think if the boys and girls learn how to code at a young age, that shouldn't be a problem either way. I see a lot of successful women in management. They have, organizational skills, producers, dealing with clients. So and those positions are always often 50-50 with women and men. So I think the industry is catching up like any other tech industry, but there is absolutely no reason why a girl or a woman could have a good chance or a career in the game industry. In fact, we would really like you to join.
Perfect. Funny you should mention that. I mean, one of our most popular courses is on robots playing games, we call it. And so we basically introduce kids to game design through programming robots. And what we have found is that if we take a class of newbies, kids that have little to no experience with programming and computer science, and we take them through for 5 days intensive. And what we've found is that the girls do amazing, because the final challenge of the course is actually to develop a game, to really think of a strategy, the tactics, everything of a game. And repeatedly, the girls have really done so well, in some cases even outdoing the boys. So there is a role for women, I think.
Absolutely. And just so you know, in terms of players today, there's many games that have 50-50, the Minecraft is, I think, about 50-50 in terms of kids playing at girls and boys, and women and men. And I think there's a bunch more games that are like that. So in terms of on the gaming side, it's already equal. So it makes sense that it's going to be equal on the creation side. Yeah.
Yes, we've got to work towards that. My final question to you, what advice would you give kids who are passionate about gaming and they want to pursue a career in game design and game development?
Yeah, I would say just start with what you know and make and create games playfully. If you play Minecraft, maybe make a Minecraft level for each other. My daughter and I, we make levels for each other. So we build a level in creative mode, and then when it's done, we switch to survival, and then we let the other play. So she surprises me with all sorts of fun levels, and I do the same thing. There's lots of great software that you can get started with. Scratch is a wonderful example of getting started with the basics of programming and interactivity and games. Game Maker is a tool that you should look at. I know a lot of professionals who started as teenagers with Game Maker. If you like 3D, you can start with SketchUp. SketchUp is a great program to learn 3D basics, and you can even print 3D models out of it. Then there's Blender 3D, which is a little higher level, but it's also very easily, it's very possible for a teenager to make amazing stuff in Blender. But you can also start with Super Mario Maker, build levels for Mario. There are so many tools out there now that you can use today to start playing around. By the time you're old enough to go to school for a game program, it's really good to have stuff in your portfolio. I know students who've paid for their college by building Roblox levels, and they already learned how to do Roblox levels in high school. So Roblox is another tool that my kids, I have a son who's 11 and a daughter who's 10, and they both love Roblox. And my next goal is to teach them how to build levels so that they can basically pay for college themselves. And I don't have to. Yeah.
Fantastic. So folks, you heard it here. This is the way you can get your kids to fund their education. JP, thank you so much for a great interview. This was really helpful, and glad to have people like you in the gaming industry.
Thank you, Deborah. Great to be here today. Thank you. Yeah.
Perfect.